In this video, I'm going to go over the first part of the Delivery Rocket project. This is Rocket Documentation 1, which will include the design brief as well as the 3 concept sketches. So beginning with the design brief, let's talk a little bit about what a design brief is for. This is part of the goal of building good habits as engineers. Engineers oftentimes don't want to do any documentation, but it is very important when working with an organization where someone might need to take over for you and they need good documentation to understand what you are doing. So just imagine if you saw a picture like this one, and that was all that was left for you, and you had to figure that out what to do with the rest. It would not be very easy, be very difficult, especially if you didn't know sort of the criteria and the constraints and what the goals were. And while the documentation that you're going to have to do for any engineering project isn't necessarily standardized, the design brief contains many of the standard points that are going to need to be documented within any organization you might work for or with. So in this case, we will be working with Thevenin's resistance to make a delivery rocket that's designed to send a message to AI quarters. And so let's go ahead. Connected to this assignment is both a delivery rocket design brief, the template to get you started, as well as the writing a design brief resource that we have here. And so I'm going to open up the writing a design brief as well as the design brief template. One of the first things we need to do is be sure to open that with Google Docs, the template that is, and then we will go to File and make a copy. I'm just going to name mine Example of Delivery Rocket Design Brief Template. And so here we have our copy of the document. This is what you'll turn in as your own copy. Some of this information is already previously filled out, such as the name of the client, Thevenin's resistance, and the target customer or consumer, which is AI command and control. They'll be the one receiving the message with a rocket. And in this case, we will be the designers. So I'm going to just put my name, and you would put your name here. Next, we've got a problem statement, a design statement. We'll need to make 2 criteria and 2 constraints as part of this assignment. So first, looking over at writing a design brief, we have a description, a table here with descriptions of each of the different components of a design brief, including a problem design statement as well as criteria and constraints. So at the bottom, we also have 3 examples if we need them for completing this. That might give us some ideas. Starting with the problem statement, it describes as a clear and concise identification and description of the design problem or opportunity. So this is really about why we're going to do something, whereas the design statement, which says statements that describe the anticipated design effort, is really more about what we're going to do. So we have why we're going to do it and then what we're going to do. Then the criteria are things that it must have, that are design requirements, whereas the constraints are things that are limits on the design, right? So that we can't have or need to be careful with those things. So let's look at the problem statement first. As a reminder, this, according to the statement, you're an engineer training to serve the Thevenin's resistance. You must design a delivery rocket to send a message to the AI headquarters, right? And as mentioned in class, the framing for this is that the channels of communication are being monitored, and so we need a new way to send a message to AI command and control. And so that's essentially what we're going to put in the problem statement. Now, the more detail you can add to this, the better. My examples here are supposed to be a minimal version of this to help you along. So we'll say the channels of communication are being monitored. We need a new way to send a message to AI headquarters, or command and control if you prefer headquarters. So that's a very simple problem statement that sort of describes what the reason for us, why we're doing this design. Next is the design statement. This is what we're going to do. So, design a rocket to deliver a message to deliver a message. We probably just leave it there. Again, if you expand upon this, especially if you add some details about the sort of rocket and things you're thinking about, that's all good for more points. Next is the criteria. Again, these are the things that it must have. And so we're saying that it must have space for the motor, engine, and mount. And also a nose cone the nose cone must be removable. So we're going to need two other criteria. Notice that we need to send a message, right? One of the things that I've mentioned and also put explicitly in the assignment here is that the rocket should include text on the body or an image decal wrap, which are things we're going to learn during this project. And so we could put body must contain text or image. All right, and so that would be the next one we could add. We need one more. And so perhaps it could be something like that really must be for most things. And so let's say must be made of plastic, right? We're talking about doing a 3D printed model rocket. So that's going to be made from some kind of plastic, right? And so that was one of the criteria. Although it might also contain or fit under constraints for the plastic part. But the constraints are really about the limitation. So it must be at a scale that it could be launched using the standard 18mm engine that's similar to the one, or like the one that is provided in the assignment here. We've got that engine. There's also a motor mount part that goes over the engine. You can choose to use this one or create your own if you would like. And so we need two more constraints. And so I think one of the obvious ones for this is to not be too heavy. So must be lightweight. We could even specify this under a certain amount if we want, right? But I'm just going to put lightweight enough to launch. This kind of ties to the scale a little bit, but it's not quite the same thing. Another constraint might be something like, let's see, must not cost more than $10, let's say. Now this is an arbitrary number, but if we go over to our writing design brief, the choice of cost as one of the constraints is not arbitrary. We can find many of these listed here, including ones about price, that tend to occur on most of them, right? And so that one does not have the price, but it has weight there with a number for you. This one also includes a cost of less than $50, and so that's a popular category for constraint, although the actual number is somewhat arbitrary. So with that, we have a very basic, minimal, this should be no more than $10. And so this is what you'll do for the first part of the Delivery Rocket Documentation 1 assignment.